This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 520 of the Yellow Wall Pods. I'm your Chef Mutzko, and today I'm just not going to tell you what we're going to talk about. It's going to be a bit of a mystery box. And so I'm joined for that and more, I guess, by Lars Baumann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Cheeky, Stefan. You are being cheeky and I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing okay too. Thank you very much. Quick update on my dog, since a few people have asked. Sammy is doing fine. He is managed to beat his cancer into remission, and he's getting rounds of chemo pretty much every week. It's like a 4-week cycle, and then he's got 1 week break right now. Just like the international break, Sammy also was on the break and doing extra well during that time, so that's good. We're now all incredibly broke, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, let's talk about Borussia Dortmund, Lars. Obviously, we have not been there in a while. It feels like we're only recording during the international breaks right now, because the previous episode was before the loss to Bayern. An episode I dubbed as a high-stakes game. I think in general we can say that Dortmund, you know, after a horrible first half, did okay in that game. But obviously, more games happened, more away games. You know, as we just discussed pre-pod, we're not gonna really talk about all these games now. But Lars, maybe just to reestablish where we are right now, maybe just give me sort of your bigger picture view on the situation at Borussia Dortmund right now. Sort of, what are the vibes going back into action?
I will say they would have been much better if not for, you know, the final 2 games before the international break, or maybe even the final 3 games, because that last Englische Woche consisted of, I think, the away game at Augsburg, which was a terrible waste of everyone's time, basically, but Dortmund came away with 3 points, so that was nice, I suppose. The away trip to Manchester City, where Dortmund, really for the first time in quite a few months, I would say, were just a bit silly in the way they conceded goals and didn't really defend, you know, the important spaces in front of goal, where then Phil Foden scored a brace of virtually identical goals. And then obviously the away game at Hamburger SV, which wasn't a great game of football, but would have been pretty much the same as the Augsburg game in terms of coming away with a somewhat dirty 1-0 away victory, which, you know, you don't sneer at, especially during that sort of phase of the schedule where you're playing away from home basically every 3 days. And then,
especially if you have 120 minutes of a cup fight in your legs too, that you carry with you for the
that was before the
games.
That was before the Augsburg game, correct?
I know, but I still think has some sort of an effect.
And I mean, I said the vibes would have been better if not for the final week. We can also say if not for the final, I don't know, 1.5 minutes of the Hamburg game, because obviously they were leading deep into added time. We're looking at a, as I said, somewhat dirty away win, and then obviously Julian Riasson didn't think it was a good idea to hinder someone at crossing into the box where Hamburger SV basically had 9 or 10 players. I think the goalkeeper wasn't up there, but everyone else basically was. And then both Emre Can and Nico Schlotterbeck thought it was a good idea to have, I don't even remember who scored. I think it was Königsdörfer for HSV. Basically get a free header in their middle, as it were. So very much a disappointing end to what otherwise was a fairly consistent run, I suppose, because considering, you know, all the away games, all the time spent in transit, in travel, in hotel beds and all that, I think there's a bit of a break we have to give them. But obviously now looking forward, the scheduling gods basically have reversed their fortunes, because Dortmund, until the winter break, have exactly one actual away trip, because they're playing Leverkusen, which is a 60-minute bus ride, maybe 90 minutes if you hit a bit of traffic, and then the only real away game until Christmas is Freiburg in the middle of December, and everything else is at home. So I think Niko Kovac talked about the A grade being results and B grades being the performances. And I'm pretty sure that now in these games until the winter break, the B grade for performances will, come into focus much more than just the A grade.
Yeah, Nico Schlotterbeck, I think, was quoted quite prominently that Dortmund are not playing enough football, if that makes sense. And yeah, it was clearly visible in the last games. It was not really easy on the eye. It did not feel like Dortmund had many ideas against deep-sitting opponents, and especially in Hamburg and also away to Augsburg. They were not really inspired or really pushing the throttle or pressing the issue. I thought in Augsburg they did fairly well to just do like the bare minimum and get away with it. In Hamburg it obviously didn't work. I think overall there are a lot of things we can still, criticize Niko Kovac for. I was not like the happiest with his substitutions and all that stuff. But in general, I think, things are all right. They're not great, but they're all right, if that makes sense. And obviously, the next games really will define much better if they stay all right. I mean, beating Frankfurt in the cup away to Frankfurt is already quite the achievement, I would say. But obviously, it's only gotten you to the round of 16. And Bayer Leverkusen, even though it is a home game, is not an easy opponent, especially if it's like 3 days after you just played them, because then you have time for adjustments, and I don't know whose coach has better adjustments from the away game and the league match that we'll have on the 29th. So yeah, we'll see. But next up are of course VfB Stuttgart, who are, I think, level on points with Dortmund. They're in 4th right now. Meanwhile, Dortmund are 3rd, and of course Dortmund have lost the last 4 games to Stuttgart. So I think someone at the news conference today asked about the boogie team. I don't know if I would go this far. But yeah, VfB Stuttgart, definitely a very competent team. Definitely a team where I'm, let's say, a little bit worried about Dortmund's exploits. You also never know really how Dortmund are going to perform out of an international break. Niko Kovac, ahead of the Bayern game, said this would be sort of a help for them in terms of finding Bayern without a rhythm. In the end, it did not quite help, even though Dortmund could have maybe snuck a point out of that game, but obviously they did not. Anyway, Lars, there's that, but then there's also, of course, the entire Karim Adeyemi storyline. On the one hand, during the international break, I saw a lot of rumors linking him with numerous Premier League clubs and stuff like that, but also, of course, the whole mystery box, and I don't know what it exactly was, sort of some kind of weapons possession that he has been penalized for. Maybe we'll start there, since this is the hot goss, I guess. I personally don't really care too much about it, and think this is going to be not much of a story in like 5 days' time, but maybe I'm naive and wrong about this. But for people who haven't really quite followed the news, similar to myself, what actually happened, and how bad is it for Dortmund? Are we going to feel any repercussions as fans? Sort of a ripple effect, maybe.
Well, to get the details has been quite difficult, at least in terms of getting, correct details, corroborated stories, because there were quite a few, rumors flying around and stuff. I think what has been established now is that Karim Adeyemi thought it was a good idea to order a mystery box from TikTok. I didn't know you could buy stuff from there, but apparently that's social media these days for you. And that mystery box included some things that are illegal to possess in Germany, which I wasn't to be entirely honest, aware of. Like, for example, I did not know that you aren't allowed to have knuckle dusters in your possession. Like, I'm fairly confident I've seen those around at least a little bit. I'm pretty confident also that Karim Adeyemi wasn't going to rob a liquor store with his knuckle dusters or whatever, but
showing up at an Aral Tankstelle.
Yeah, I mean,
give me all your money.
Maybe in Dortmund North, me being a citizen of the city now, I obviously know about all the rumors about the Nordstadt. Yeah, I mean, the salient point, I suppose, is that he ordered something online and didn't really know what it was. And then apparently by coincidence, at least that's what Adeyemi is claiming, the package, which he hadn't even opened yet, he says, I don't know, landed at the door of the police. And they looked into that mystery box and found things that you are not allowed to possess and opened proceedings. To make a convoluted story shorter, he's been fined, I think, 450,000 euros, which, they landed at by going from his salary, dividing it by basically 60 days, I think, and then deducing, some money he has to pay for his wife and his wife's kids or kid. I don't know if Loredana has more than one kid. And basically that's the story. The problematic thing is not necessarily only being punished in somewhat severe terms. I mean, I'm not a multi-millionaire, but I'm pretty sure even a multi-millionaire like Karim Adeyemi doesn't like paying 450,000 in very much avoidable fines. The more problematic thing, at least from a club perspective, and also the German national team, is that Adeyemi didn't actually let anyone know about it and kind of hoped the whole thing wouldn't come out in the media. And then, as things tend to do, they did come out in the yellow press. I think we have to credit Bild Zeitung for breaking the story, which was then corroborated by somewhat more reputable sources, if I may put it like that. And then, the national team leadership, let's put it like that. So coach Julian Nagelsmann and also sporting director Rudi Völler were quite critical, obviously, in terms of how they talked about Adeyemi. They had a stern talking to with him or whatever. And then when he returned from international duty to Dortmund, he had another heart-to-heart with Lars Ricken. I'm sure Sebastian Kehl was there, maybe Niko Kovac as well. But there's no additional sanction from Dortmund outside of Adeyemi being ordered to basically put in some community service in a project in the Dortmund Nordstadtliga, which I guess, Stefan, you might actually know more about than me, having been around these parts more than I have.
Well, I mean, the Nordstadtliga is a project, if you will, it's actually quite new. Honestly, I don't know if I've been around much for it, but it's definitely a project to get people from the northern part of Dortmund, which is the poorer part of the city, to basically develop an infrastructure to get more young kids around that area to play football and to do something during the day. So that's basically the gist of it. Dortmund are very much involved in that. So it's a cool project, and obviously it'd be nice if Dortmund pros would dedicate some time for a project like those without having ordered some knuckle dusters and the Leopard 2 on TikTok, some mystery box. But here we are. I personally don't really care much about it. I think he is just doing stupid stuff on the internet, but I think maybe maybe me living in the United States and also hearing what other pro athletes are doing, on a dumb shit scale, it doesn't really does hardly register. Let's put it this way. Obviously, not ideal, not the story you want to read, because I do believe that Karim Adeyemi, for this season at least, has been one of Dortmund's better players, and I just hope that this does not sort of take focus away from him. Yes, he's been criticized in recent games for his lack of consistencies, that his form dipped a little bit. But also I don't think that Niko Kovac has really had matters for him the way he has been played recently. So, and it's also not that Serhou Guirassy is in top form, that you have a great striking partner to play off of these days, because Guirassy has not only not scored a lot of goals recently, but also couldn't buy a first touch. I think he himself was dealing with some injuries. So yeah, maybe that's something where we can shift the focus onto Stuttgart. Obviously, Guirassy is a prime candidate for the hashtag Curse of the X. And also, hopefully, since he did not travel to the international, to his national team, that he actually manages to get back in full health and, some much needed shape and fitness, because, the recent form just was not where we needed it. And my hope is that now, with maybe fresher legs and just, a fresher mind, if that makes sense, because I'm sure mentally it's also pretty tough to go through all these games. That Guirassy is playing better, because in the form he has been in the last, 5-6 games or so, he is honestly not much of a help. So almost a hindrance, and I understand that people are demanding to see more minutes for Fabio Silva, etc. So yeah, that's just sort of my hopeful outlook. But yeah, not to jump around too much, but Lars, do you think that negotiations right now, since, I think Dortmund do want to extend Karim Adeyemi's contract, but he's, changed agents a few times. Do you think this is also something that's really heating up right now in the background? And can Dortmund fans be hopeful that soonish there will be maybe an announcement that Karim Adeyemi indeed has extended his contract, or do you expect him to change clubs?
I definitely don't expect anything too soon, because obviously now, until the winter break, there's basically no time between games outside of, recuperating energy a little bit. Obviously, these players don't negotiate too much themselves, but, at the end of the discussions, they are part of them. And obviously Adeyemi is now being represented by Jorge Mendes, who's one of the biggest agents in the world and has quite a few clients to take care of. Now, obviously, he's not the only agent in his agency, but I'm pretty sure a high-profile player and probably the highest profile player on the German market that Mendes has, he's not going to let, the intern handle that, so to speak. I also don't think that Adeyemi is the absolute highest priority for Dortmund, because that absolutely has to go to Nico Schlotterbeck, who's, being built up as the face of the club for the next decade or so, unless he decides not to extend his contract. So I'm pretty sure that talks with Schlotterbeck take precedence over Adeyemi. The rumors have it that both those guys would very much like a release clause in their next contract if they were to sign one at Dortmund. I think Dortmund have shown with the likes of, let's say, Erling Haaland, but also Serhou Guirassy, that in some cases they are still willing to go that far. I'm pretty sure I would be okay with Nico Schlotterbeck getting one, because you absolutely cannot lose him anytime soon. And especially, I think it's pretty obvious that if Schlotterbeck doesn't sign for Dortmund, he probably signs for Bayern. That's at least my opinion. So that would be doubly hurtful, like it was with Mats Hummels when he left as the club captain to go to Bayern. So it wouldn't be the end of the world if you had to give Schlotterbeck and I suppose also Adeyemi a release clause. To me, the question with Adeyemi always comes down to how much more development they see in him, because obviously he had this very good start to this season, scoring goals, being more active also off the ball and all that stuff. But somewhat predictably, I would say, his form has dipped, as you alluded to earlier, and I'm just not sure that he's the kind of player who will ever turn into, a full-time performer, let's say. And if there is the genuine opportunity, which I somewhat doubt, that you can get 80 million euros for that sort of streaky player, who's also had quite the injury history already, despite not necessarily being considered an injury-prone player, but Adeyemi has basically missed time with a naggle here or there in every season he's had. If there's the opportunity to get real money for him, that's the avenue I would probably explore. But I think it's also a question of Dortmund not wanting to lose, a German international who has high potential, who's also very popular with the fans, especially younger fans, who has a marketable face and, plays a position at a decent enough level that is always hard to fill. Like, it's a bit of a conundrum, I suppose. And the one thing I would say is I don't really see the market being too hot for him. Like all these rumors about, big English clubs falling over their feet to sign Karim Adeyemi. I just don't really see why there would be this war for the services of Karim Adeyemi, who has he hit double figures in terms of scoring goals for Dortmund? Maybe. He's definitely not among the most consistent players in the Bundesliga. And obviously, he's also not a kid anymore. I mean, he's, I think, 23 years old. He's been a full-level professional football player for 5 years or so. So, again, it comes down to how much more development do other clubs see in him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a speed demon. That is certainly a skill that cannot be taught, and something that he for sure has. Yeah, it's difficult. For sure, also needs to play in a certain role. I don't really think he's like the perfect winger, and I think if your system isn't set up in a way that suits Karim Adeyemi, he's a bit of a waste in your squad, honestly. So it's difficult for other clubs, but at the same time, anytime I hear someone linked, say, with Manchester United, I'm always confident that Manchester United are not the smartest club, and when they sign players, I don't think that they know how much sense things make or not make. So there's that. Obviously, I don't want to bash them, but that's sort of how things have often panned out in the past, that they've just, they freaking played Kagawa as a left winger. So anyway, I don't know where to go next, but I guess we can talk about the upcoming members assembly and the vote that will probably make Hans-Joachim Watzke as the president of the club. And maybe we'll get a new /old club logo in that vein as well. Lars, heading into this assembly and vote, what are the things that maybe also international fans, maybe also international club members should know about? I don't know how much steeped you are in this topic. I, of course, once again, am not as deep. I know there's a certain type of vote, hybrid vote, where you can also vote remotely. We can obviously question a little bit how democratic it is, that the way how the sort of voting process works overall, and the whole kerfuffle with him and the current president. But yeah, I don't know, Lars, what you want to sort of pick up on that issue, but I think we should at least discuss it briefly.
I think the most important thing to have in mind as it pertains to this assembly is that Hans-Joachim Watzke is 100% going to be voted as the new president because he's the only one standing for election, at least in the first, I think, 3 rounds of voting. If it so happened that he didn't get a majority in those 3 rounds, I think someone else could stand, but it's unlikely to the point of not being worth any discussion. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the absolute dream result. Obviously, that is something in the 95% or more category, which does happen in these things, because obviously when there's only one candidate and they are well liked within the membership, there's no real reason not to vote for them. But given the, I guess, personality of Hans-Joachim Watzke, who's been abrasive at times over the years, especially towards organized fans, and remembering the Rheinmetall fiasco, sponsorship by an arms company, remembering also that the incumbent Reinhold Luno presented himself as the option for the organized fans, and subsequently kind of dropped out of the race when he finally realized he had no chance whatsoever, I guess. It's not going to be a dream result for Watzke. I think I read today in Ruhrnachrichten that club sources expect the turnout in favor of Watzke to be like 80% and up, which would, I think, be a pretty decent sign that a lot of people aren't happy with the transition of power to Hans-Joachim Watzke, if it even is power, because obviously he's going to be a lot less influential as the president of Borussia Dortmund than he was as the leader and CEO. I think there's no debate about that. But obviously he served in his post for 20 years now, and he's made the decision that he wants to change things up. And personally, I kind of struggle always because there's like 2 sides to Hans-Joachim Watzke. I think there's absolutely no debate that Borussia Dortmund wouldn't be where they are if it wasn't for him, because he took over in a very difficult time, made a lot of difficult choices. But you can also say that especially
Borussia Dortmund wouldn't be where they are because of Hans-Joachim Watzke. Yes. Sorry for being funny, but yeah, I think he has also been a hindrance in some
points.
I
mean, especially like if we want to divide his 20 years into 2 parts, then the first part was like picture perfect, and then the second part has had a lot more bumps. I think he himself talked about not making the right decisions too often in the era post Jürgen Klopp.
Didn't he just admit that he wouldn't fire Tuchel looking back at it after the bus bomb attack?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he didn't fire him because of the bus bombing attack, but
he did talk about how that was sort of the tipping point.
Yeah, because Tuchel's reaction wasn't great, but I think, as we've talked about on this show a lot, I think we should not forget that Thomas Tuchel was also on that bus, and maybe that kind of informs how he behaved in the immediate aftermath. But yes, he said he wouldn't have fired Thomas Tuchel. I already mentioned the Rheinmetall thing. It's also been quite apparent that Hans-Joachim Watzke's priorities have shifted away from Borussia Dortmund to his roles at the German FA, at the Bundesliga, at the European level. Like, he has his fingers in a lot of pots these days, and it's no longer just Mr. Borussia Dortmund. And that's just what makes viewing his 20 years of service, let's say, as the CEO, it just makes it quite difficult to come to like that one conclusion. But ultimately, I think he's been a very important servant of the club, and I think it's not like he doesn't deserve to be president, but I'll be very interested to see how he interprets that role, because he hasn't acted presidentially, let's say, at any point over the last 20 years.
Yeah, Same. It's definitely someone who's viewed controversially under or among Dortmund fans, for sure. I'm not entirely sure how much more we want to talk about this. I want to sort of get back a little bit to the sporting things, but I just opened Ruhrnachrichten myself, and there's a lot of intrigue around the entire assembly. I think Dr. Sabine Aldemann is not getting to the board or gremium or whatever you want to call it. There are like a lot of there's a lot of personnel involved and a lot of politics being played behind the scenes, and it's definitely an interesting thing. Maybe we'll see someone, we'll look for someone who we can interview who can sort of explain the entire situation a little bit better than us two. But it's.
I mean, I'll be at the assembly for fingers crossed less than 10 hours, but they've already told us it might be a long day. Because obviously, besides crowning Hans-Joachim Watzke as the new president, there's also a number of Anträge. What's that in English?
Point of orders. I have no idea what it's called right now. I'm sorry. I'm blanking just
as you mentioned before. One member has proposed going to a different club logo, which
proposals, I guess, or motions.
Yeah, motions sounds pretty good. Because obviously there's going to be a vote on every motion. The club logo thing, for example, is going to be discussed. Like these assemblies are also always. I don't want to be too negative, but they offer a stage for, let's say, quite weird people sometimes who just want to talk. And speak their mind on things and maybe go off script a little bit. So it's going to be a long day. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be too much smarter about the actual goings on afterwards, because obviously all the politicking is taking place behind closed doors and it's not going to be on stage, because I'm pretty sure as of right now, every pose has exactly one person standing for it. So it's not going to be like, getting dueling speeches and then there being an actual democratic vote between two people. It's basically all done and dusted before, and the only thing you can do is to voice your concerns or whatever, as A, speak up, and B, not give the person that is definitely going to win the vote your personal vote.
Yeah. I don't know if those things need to be changed in the club's, I don't know, code. But that's definitely a discussion for another day. What I find interesting, though, is the motion for the new logo. Because that's obviously going to be a bit of a change if it actually goes through. And, it could. I have no idea, honestly, if it does or doesn't. Personally, if you were a member of Borussia Dortmund, would you vote for the logo? Obviously, we're a podcast. We can't show it here, but I think people have seen it. Would you vote for it or against it? Or are you just beyond caring about stuff like that?
I'm not actually sure I've seen, the actual proposal. I've read what it supposed to look like, and I don't mind the way it sounded. I also tend to think that people attach far too much meaning to the logo, especially for a club like Dortmund, which has changed its logo quite a few times over the years. It's not like the one that's being proposed right now is a complete 180 from where it is right now. It's basically turning back to a version that had been used or in use for some time in the past. It's not like, for example, Juventus going to a completely new design with just the J, which was a complete reversal of basically the entire design language the club had used for decades. So I don't know. I am not a member, and even if I was, I'm pretty sure as part of the media I couldn't vote. I don't know. Maybe I would go for it now that you send it to me. During my blabbering, I'm looking it up right now. This is great podcasting. My browser cannot be updated right now. That's good. Just have to accept a number of cookies. And here it is. Yes, I would vote for that because that looks much better.
Okay, I'm glad we could finally get your opinion on it. I mean, it is more or less the same logo. It just has a thicker border in between the same border that's already current, sort of the circle. I personally I'm okay with both logos, so if they change it, I'm not going to be mad, nor am I going to be elated. I feel like we should bring back the logo with the lion at some point too for a little bit. I thought that was also really cool.
Yeah, and they can also go back to a tobacco sponsorship because obviously when you're already in bed with an arms manufacturer, tobacco isn't the worst thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just get all the horrific sponsorships going.
All the
again.
blood money, the new sleeve sponsor, maybe the Wagner Group. I mean, Visit Rwanda has now left Arsenal, so maybe they want to link up with Dortmund.
I don't know.
Take
maybe,
all comers
maybe
here.
BlackRock. If you have a little money, she'll throw it our way. Who cares? No, in all honesty, a nice little cooperation with Nestle about how we can staff as many people as possible and not access any drinking water. I think that would be an amazing partnership with Dortmund, who need the water themselves to water their pitch, obviously. So that makes a lot of sense in my view. But no, let's talk a little bit about VfB Stuttgart, since this is the next game ahead, and of course Villarreal will follow soon. Like I said, initially I'm feeling very uneasy about the game, of course, because Sebastian Hoeneß pretty much had Dortmund's number in recent times. I don't know if it's matchup related, if Stuttgart's squad and sort of the personnel they have is just a mismatch for Dortmund, or if Stuttgart are just a better well-run team in general and are better organized on the football field. I don't know how you see it. Maybe we should start with saying that Niklas Süle, of course, is still out. His toe does not fit into a soccer cleat as of right now, so that will probably take a while. There were some good news though. Julien de Renville is back in training and he's playing with the under-23s right now, but as of right now he's not going to be available for a couple more weeks. As far as I know, I am hoping that he is back sooner than later, because I think he could be much of a much needed injection of footballing skill, and if he gets back into form, that is. And yeah, other than that, I think Benzebaini has still some back issues that he's nursing, but he should be available as far as I know. And other than that, good news. Everyone, I think, returned healthy from the international break. Now, obviously, I don't know the fitness levels of each individual player, but at least in terms of lineup and players available for the game against Stuttgart, I think we should be okay and don't have too many concerns. How do you see things? What would your preferred lineup be going into this not so unimportant game?
Well, first of all, I got it wrong in the press conference today. Dortmund have actually lost 5 in a row against Stuttgart, because there was also a cup game. And before that, I think...
Well, you meant league matches.
Yeah, but I didn't say it. Which obviously Niko Kovac didn't pick me up on, because he didn't like the question in the first place. And before that, I think, was the much maligned Soumaila Koulibaly 3-3 draw, which kind of lost Dortmund the title, even though they should have won it the week after debacle. So it's been a while since Dortmund have taken care of business against Stuttgart, who are a very well-coached team. It has to be said, I think Sebastian Hoeneß is doing an incredible job at Stuttgart, because they have so much turnover in that team. not least because Dortmund like to poach players every now and then, obviously with Waldemar Anton and Zero Guirassy last year. And then this year, they lost Enzo Mio, for example, going to Saudi, and a few other important players. Boltemade going to Newcastle instead of Bayern Munich, a few others. So there's always turnover in Stuttgart, but they don't really seem to care under Sebastian Hoeneß, which is always a good sign when a coach has a clear vision for a team, even though, personnel changes quite a bit. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a very difficult game. Dortmund haven't done too well against good opposition. Obviously, I think Niko Kovac said today that they didn't really play too many of those. Bayern, they lost, which, isn't a shame. Manchester City, they lost, also isn't a shame. But then Leipzig, Juventus, you might add into the equation there. And also Frankfurt, they drew those games because Frankfurt, they obviously only beat on penalties, which technically isn't winning the game. It's just having a decider after a draw. So it would behoove Dortmund to have a good performance and also a good result against a good team for once, but it's going to be very, very difficult. Maybe it helps Dortmund that Stuttgart like to play football because, as we've seen in the last few weeks, it's not Dortmund's strong suit when they have the onus of playmaking on their side. But then Stuttgart are also quite happy to sit a bit deeper and counterattack. If we remember back to Niko Kovac's first game for Borussia Dortmund as head coach in February, Stuttgart basically didn't do anything and then were 2 goals ahead because Waldemar Anton scored an own goal, and then Jeff Chabot, I think it came off a set piece, and then Dortmund didn't really find an answer outside of Julian Brandt scoring from a corner as well, I think. So in terms of the...
I have no recollection of any of that.
I had to look it up for the press conference today because I was perhaps going to ask about that first game of Kovac's tenure here in Dortmund, but I didn't. In terms of the lineup, I mean, I don't really see any surprises anymore because we've been surprised quite a bit this season, especially with players returning from injury. So I wouldn't take Kovac too seriously when talking about Duranville, because he also told us that Emre Can wasn't going to be able to play before the international break. And then he started the game before the international break in Hamburg and did really well until the 97th or so minute. Schlotterbeck also returned out of the blue, basically, against was it Wolfsburg, I think, in September. Yes. So Kovac doesn't mind surprising us, let's say, with the decisions for the starting 11, but I don't know anything that right now would really constitute a surprise outside of Duranville, but like there's no role for him on this team right now, I don't think, because he's more of a true winger than Adeyemi or Bayer, so I don't know that he would replace one of them, especially in a game against opposition of the caliber of Stuttgart. So to make things a bit easier, it's going to be a box standard starting 11 with, the few spots which are always up for discussion or debate. In central midfield, is it Joe Bellingham, Pascal Gross, Marcel Sabitzer, Felix Metscher? It's basically always 2 of those 4 starting, but the combinations have varied quite wildly. I'm not expecting Fabio Silva to get a start, especially seeing that as Guirassy, as you mentioned before, stayed in Dortmund during the international break. Bayer also stayed in Dortmund. Adeyemi didn't play for Germany because he was suspended for the first game through bookings, not weapons possession. And then he didn't play in the second.
Important to point that out.
Sometimes you have to make the distinction these days. And in the second game, he didn't play coach's decision, as they would say in the NBA, I suppose. So he also should have fresh legs. So it's again basically a box standard starting 11. The only question, I suppose, is about Rami Bensebaini. If he can play, maybe Emre Can moves to the bench. If not, Schlotterbeck, Can, Anton, that's pretty solid as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean,
Like I said on previous episodes, I think Dortmund can certainly field a starting 11 that can compete with pretty much any team in the world, honestly. I mean, yes, game against Manchester City was pretty one-sided in the end, but even there, Dortmund had pretty good stints, and Nico Schlotterbeck was a somewhat better defender. It's maybe the one area where I would knock him a little bit. It's obviously the defending part itself is maybe not his absolute strongest world-class strong suit as maybe in other areas where he is really strong, like build-up play, for example. Certainly has some weaknesses. Hopefully we'll learn from games like those. But nevertheless, still do believe that there's a very good team in there. Dortmund have obviously not always gotten all the horsepower they have on the road. So that's also a side of the story. But, I personally would already be happy if I don't have to see Pascal Groß in midfield. I think Joe Bellingham in the last games was doing okay. I think it would be beneficial for, I guess, the long-term development of him, but also Dortmund as sort of a team and maybe trying to build an axis if he continues to play in central midfield next to Felix Metscher, who I think has been one of Dortmund's best players in midfield. And I don't know if I want to see more of Chukwuemeka or not. He finally scored against Hamburg, even though I wasn't really that impressed with his performance then. And overall, the season of Chukwuemeka, I'm not best pleased considering the fee that Dortmund paid. I still feel like the output so far has not been where it needs to be. Same goes for Maxi Bayer, honestly. And I think we'll have the same question marks that we had before the international break. Is young Koto going to get any playing time over Riasson or not? Daniel Svensson, I guess, will just eternally have to play on the left side. We'll see. Even though I did find the experiment with Maxi Bayer as a left wing back, if you will, also interesting, let's say. I don't even know what game that was. Was it the Hamburg game? Was it the Augsburg game? I forgot where that happened.
It was Augsburg, and he did absolutely nothing offensively.
Yeah, well, how is that a change from when he plays further up front? Anyway, I'm really intrigued to see how Dortmund are comparing to Stuttgart at this point of the season, because I feel like the result of the game. Obviously, we've talked about the what's B-Note in English?
Style points.
Yeah, style points. That certainly was a discussion right now, but I feel like the result of this game will set the tone even a little bit more than the style points, if you will. So, yeah, I'm just really intrigued how Dortmund are going to try to contain Stuttgart over the 90 minutes and not have silly errors at the back, because I feel like they've started to sneak in a little bit here and there. So, regaining stability and trying to play a little bit more football, as Nico Schlotterbeck has hoped for, is also what I'm hoping for. And then I'm fairly confident, maybe naively, that Dortmund will take care of business in the Champions League against Villarreal on Tuesday night. Dortmund are just a team that I think can get their level up to where it needs to be for a Champions League outing right now, and I think they will take care of business. And so far, that I think if they win, they are going to be relatively safely in the top 24, and that means they will at least qualify for this in-between playoff round before the round of 16, and then we'll see how much further they can take it with more games coming up. Do you also want to briefly talk about Leverkusen, or is this just something we should shelve for next week?
Looking at the time, we are shelving.
All right, then we'll do that. As always, everyone out there, thank you for listening. We'll actually be back next week for a Thanksgiving episode, I guess. And with that, I hope you have a good weekend and enjoy the Champions League night against Villarreal. Until then, goodbye.